The dinner rush had barely begun when one small decision changed the lives of everyone inside the restaurant. Three wealthy businessmen laughed as they pushed away the bill, convinced that a young waitress was too powerless to stand against them. What they didn't know was that someone had quietly stepped through the entrance behind them, a man whose name was written on every paycheck in the building. Before this night was over, arrogance would meet justice, and kindness would receive the reward it had never expected. Before we continue, if you believe kindness always matters more than wealth, please take a moment to like this video. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that remind us why humanity still matters. Emma Parker had worked at the Grand Oak restaurant for almost 4 years. At 26, she wasn't chasing luxury or fame. She was simply trying to keep her small family together after life had taken almost everything from them. Her father had passed away after a long illness, leaving behind hospital bills that seemed impossible to pay. Her mother struggled with arthritis, making it difficult to work, while Emma's younger brother dreamed of attending college. Every extra shift she accepted, every aching step she took through the dining room, carried the weight of her family's future. The Grand Oak wasn't an ordinary restaurant. Crystal chandeliers reflected warm golden light across polished marble floors. Soft piano music floated through the air while servers dressed in elegant uniforms moved with graceful precision. Wealthy executives, celebrities, and influential guests often chose the restaurant for important meetings. A single mistake could cost an employee their job. Emma understood that pressure better than anyone. She greeted every guest with a sincere smile, even when exhaustion hid behind her eyes. Her coworkers admired her because she never complained. Whenever another server became overwhelmed, Emma quietly stepped in to help. She believed respect should never depend on someone's income or social status. That evening, a luxury black sedan stopped outside the restaurant. 3 sharply dressed businessmen entered together. Their expensive watches flashed beneath the lights, and confidence filled every step they took. They were immediately escorted to the restaurant's finest table near the large windows overlooking the city skyline. From the moment they sat down, the atmosphere around them changed. They barely acknowledged the hostess, ignored polite greetings, and spoke loudly enough for nearby diners to hear. Their laughter carried an uncomfortable edge that made several employees exchange nervous glances. Emma was assigned to their table. She approached with her usual professionalism, offering menus and describing the evening's chef specials. The men barely looked at her. One continued scrolling through his phone while another interrupted her explanation to demand faster service. The third simply smirked as though her presence was beneath his attention. Still, Emma remained calm. She carefully wrote down an order that could have served an entire family. Premium steaks, imported seafood, vintage wine worth hundreds of dollars, handcrafted desserts, and rare coffee from overseas filled the table over the next 2 hours. Every request became more demanding than the last. One plate was returned simply because the garnish wasn't arranged exactly as expected. Another glass of wine was rejected because its temperature differed by only a few degrees. Emma apologized each time without showing frustration. The kitchen staff quietly admired her patience. As the evening progressed, other customers noticed how politely she handled increasingly rude behavior. Some whispered that they would have walked away long ago. When dinner finally ended, Emma placed the bill inside a leather folder and thanked the gentleman for visiting. What happened next froze the room. One of the businessmen opened the folder, glanced at the total, and laughed loudly. The other 2 joined him, their laughter echoing through the elegant dining room. Instead of reaching for a wallet, he slowly pushed the folder back toward Emma. The message was obvious. They had no intention of paying. Emma politely explained that there must be some misunderstanding and kindly asked whether they wished to pay separately or together. Instead of answering, the men leaned back comfortably as though they were watching entertainment. Several nearby guests stopped eating. The restaurant manager hurried toward the table after noticing the growing tension. He respectfully explained the payment policy and requested that the gentleman settle the bill. Again, they refused. One claimed the service wasn't worth paying for despite finishing every dish. Another insisted wealthy customers deserved complimentary treatment. The third suggested that the waitress should simply cover the bill herself if she cared so much. Emma felt her heart sink. The amount on the receipt exceeded 2 weeks of her salary. Company policy required unresolved bills to be investigated. Although employees weren't automatically responsible for unpaid meals, incidents like these often created suspicion, paperwork, and disciplinary reviews. Emma knew how easily one misunderstanding could threaten the job her family depended on. She stood quietly, refusing to let tears appear. The manager contacted restaurant security while politely asking the guests to remain seated until the matter could be resolved. Instead of cooperating, the businessmen became louder. They mocked the staff, joked about how easily expensive restaurants feared wealthy clients, and confidently insisted that nobody inside the building would dare challenge them. Many customers looked away, uncomfortable with what they were witnessing. Emma wondered why some people believed money gave them permission to humiliate others. She remembered something her late father often told her during difficult days. Real wealth isn't measured by what sits inside a bank account. It is measured by how gently you treat people who can offer you nothing in return. Those words gave her just enough strength to remain standing. None of the employees noticed the quiet figure entering through the main entrance. He wore a simple navy suit without flashy accessories. No security guards surrounded him. No one announced his arrival. Most customers assumed he was simply another guest arriving late for dinner. The elderly doorman, however, immediately straightened his posture. The head chef happened to glance through the kitchen window and suddenly stopped moving. The restaurant manager turned pale. Only a handful of employees recognized the man immediately because he rarely visited without advance notice. He was the billionaire founder whose family had built the restaurant chain from a single neighborhood cafe decades earlier. As he calmly walked across the dining room, his eyes quietly observed everything before him. The silent guests, the anxious employees, the unpaid bill still resting on the table, and one exhausted waitress standing alone while three wealthy men smiled with complete confidence. None of the three businessmen noticed him. Not yet. They continued laughing, convinced the evening still belonged to them. But within the next few moments, everything they believed about power, respect, and money was about to change forever. I'll be ready to continue with part 2, where the billionaire steps forward, uncovers the truth, and the emotional turning point begins.